Hey guys, TripleB here. We just concluded the 8th week of the Budget Build Battle Tournament. Well, the Australian version of it at least. There is a North American one, so if you're keen for that, don't worry, I got a time zone for you. But the Budget Build Battle format, in case you're not familiar with it, it's a format where you don't use any rulebox cards, so Radiants, A-Specs, EXs, and Vs, get them out of here. We're just about those single prizers. It means that cards that don't normally see a lot of play, or at least can't quite keep up with the standard meta, have an area where they can kind of shine. So the 8th place list tonight was Miraidon and kind of like a future box. So Miraidon's attack peak acceleration does a base damage of 40, then lets you search your deck for 2 basic energy cards and attach them to your future Pokemon in any way that you'd like. You can be charging itself up to use its Sparking Strike attack, which does a flat 160 damage. Pretty solid number, especially since you can scale that up with Future Boost Capsule, getting up to 180. Not a bad number to be able to hit. Or you can be charging up the other attackers in the deck. So there is Iron Bundle, who's normally used for the Hyper Blower ability. When it's on your bench, you can discard this card and just like force your opponent to switch out their active with one of their bench. But you can be using Refrigerated Stream, doing a base damage of 80, and if the defending Pokemon's in evolution, it just can't attack on the next turn. So you can just lock them out of the game. You just leave this sat in the active and you go, yep, nope, you're not gonna touch me. Nope, still not gonna touch me. Yeah, a little bit sneaky. The other future attacking Pokemon in here is Iron Jugulis. Its homing headbutt is going to do 50 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon in play that already have damage counters on them. So you're doing a bit of chip damage with like Miraidon, or potentially using the Dusclops or Dusknoir to put damage counters onto your opponent's bench, and then Iron Jugulis is just going to kind of wipe them off the board slowly, doing some spread. There is the second attack on here though, Berrien Beam, doing a flat 150. Costs 5 colorless energy though, so a little bit hefty, but Miraidon can help charge that up. Or if you have a Future Boost Capsule on here, you can use it for 3 colorless energy instead. So Miraidon accelerates 2, attach 1 for turn, and you can get going. Definitely an interesting concept for a deck. The trainer cards in here, it's kind of standard staples, so we're not going to dig into them too much. Like you've got your research, your boss's orders, Lana's Aid, very solid card in this format, getting a combination of 3 cards being basic energy or non-rule box Pokemon from the discard, which in this format just means any of your Pokemon. So really clutch just to be able to get back into your attacking pieces, or maybe you want to get another Dusclops playoff. Not a bad shout. Iono, Arven, Eerie for some disruption, counter catcher. You're going to be taking a while to start taking knockouts, or after you proc a Dusclops going behind on prizes, it means counter catchers online, so definitely a great inclusion for here. And then yeah, the other stuff, I feel like you guys are probably pretty familiar with it, so we're not going to dive too much into it. For the 7th place list though, we did see Raspberry piloting a Lost Box Palafin deck. So Lost Box, if you're familiar with it, but at this point I feel like everyone is. If you're brand new to the game though, the concept of it is you're using Comfy, Flower selecting, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 in your hand, 1 in the lost zone. Chorus, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, 3 in your hand, and then 2 in the lost zone. And then once you have 7 cards in your lost zone, you can start using Mirage Gate, which lets you search your deck for 2 energy of different types to attach to your Pokemon. Or when you have 4 things in the lost zone, Cramorant can attack for free. And when you have 10, Sableye can use Lost Mine to put 12 damage counters onto your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you'd like. This is going to combo amazingly to help set up knockouts for Cramorant, or combining with Palafin's Jet Punch attack that does 30 to the active and then 30 to something on the bench. So it can be setting up damage, Sableye cleans it up, or Cramorant cleans that up. Or if you want, you use Justice Kick that does a flat 210 damage. There is a secondary condition for this attack though. If this Pokemon didn't move from the bench to the active, it's going to do nothing. With Lost Box though, you want to be proccing as many Comfies as possible on a turn, so you're running high counts of switching cards, which means Palafin's taking advantage of that too, and so is Tatsugiri, who can be sat in the active, look at the top 6 cards of your deck, grab a supporter card, pop it into your hand. Yeah, solid consistency there. Kind of interesting inclusion here though, that I don't see a lot of people running, and I feel like that might start to change, is Rabsca. Its spherical shield prevents all damage and effects of attacks done from your opponent's Pokemon done to your bench Pokemon. So that means things like damage counters that Sableye is going to be trying to put, we can prevent that. Devolution TM that's wanting to devolve your Pokemon, so if you're running into spread decks, they're just trying to like do some chip damage, make you smaller, take you out, or just damage your bench. Rabsca is protecting against all of that. A deck that did see quite a bit of success tonight, Rabsca would have helped a lot in that matchup, but we'll leave that until we get to it. The rest of the deck though, I feel like are cards we've mostly covered already, so I'm not going to dive into them too much. And then in 6th place, we are seeing a Frosslass deck We're going to see some more of these. We're going to see some more of these. But Frosslass has the Freezing Shroud ability. During Pokemon Checkup, you're going to put a damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability. It excludes Frosslass, though. So, yeah, if your opponent's playing a lot of abilities, you're going to be doing some chip damage and between turns, potentially taking knockouts, putting a lot of pressure onto them. You're going to combine this with Monkey Dory, whose Adrena Brain ability. As long as you have a Dark Energy attached to this Pokemon, you can move 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon onto your opponent's Pokemon. Or one of your opponent's Pokemon. So it's like Frosslass is putting pressure onto your opponent. It's putting damage counters onto your Monkey Dory. Your Monkey Dory is putting those damage counters onto your opponent. It's pretty aggressive. They did have 2 copies of Cleffa in here as well. Having free retreat, not a bad option, and having a free attack allowing you to draw until 7 cards in hand, since they're kind of leaning towards the Monkey Dory and the Frosslass to be just putting damage counters out. They don't really need to attack to deal damage. They can be attacking to just get cards in hand. Their other option was using Mawil's Tempting Trap. It makes it so during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat, and if you attack it on your following turn, you do 90 more damage to it. It's mostly in here for Tempting Trap just to lock something in the active though, so you're locking them in the active and then damage counters are going on to Monkey Dory, you're distributing them around, and you're putting something in the active that just can't hurt you. Like you're gusting a Bibarel up, or you're using Counter Catcher or Boss. Yeah, like just bring something into the active that's not going to be able to do anything. You've seen your opponents used all their switch cards, and then it's just kind of like a, well, I'm just going to wait this out until you lose situation. For other attackers, though, they did have a Veltal, who also uses Dark Energy. Corrosive Wind's going to put 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that already has damage on it. So Frosslass is helping set that up into ability Pokemon, and Monkey Dory is helping set that up into Pokemon that don't have abilities. Just saying like, well, I took damage, so it's yours now, and a Veltal's going to hurt you. They did also have an Absol in here with Dark Bolt doing a base damage of 20, and then 50 more if it has 3 or more Dark Energy in play. Interesting call for this one. There is an Absol that also does spread damage, doing just a flat 10 damage to the active and then 10 damage to all of your opponent's Pokemon. There's no condition about they need to be damaged already, so it's kind of a nice one to pair with the Yveltal just to help set it up, but I'm sure there is some logic to go with this one, especially since the Mawile does make it so your opponent's going to take 90 more damage the following turn. You could be locking something in the active, pivot into Absol, and then just knock them out. So yeah, not a bad shout. Rest of the deck though, again, we're seeing those standard staples in here. Something a little bit different though is Janine's Secret Art. You get to choose 2 of your dark Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a basic dark energy and attach it to them. If one of them's in the active spot though, it's gonna get poisoned. So this is just a great way to kind of thin through your deck, get energy into play. Like you can be getting that onto your Yveltal and your Absol, and then it frees up your attachment for turn to put a dark energy onto Monkey Dory. And it's also getting 3 energy out one turn, so then just 1 more attachment for turn the next turn. Or no, actually, this is if you have at least 3 dark energy. So yeah, if you do attachment for turn and Janine, Absol can start doing the bonus damage. Yeah, interesting call out actually. I like that. They did also have experience share in here. So I'm thinking the logic with that is chuck it onto your Monkey Dories. If an Yveltal gets knocked out, you're keeping that dark energy in play on that. I like it. And then also having a devolution TM. So with the Frosslass, we talked about it before, just doing chip damage to an opponent's bench, devolving them into lower HP things. It's pretty dirty, and yeah, I can definitely respect that being in here. In 5th place, we are seeing a Feraligatr deck. So Feraligatr has Torrential Heart. Once during your turn, you can put 5 damage counters onto this Pokemon. If you do, the attacks that it's using are going to do 120 more damage into your opponent's active Pokemon. It has a giant wave attack that does 160, so potentially you could get this up to 280, knocking out, I believe, anything in the format, like even the Okidogi might be the one that gets outside that range because it has a dark energy on it. It's 100 extra, it goes up to 230, and people run it with Luxurious Cape, gets up to 330. So that might be like the one fringe case, but for the most part, Feraligatr can one-shot anything. They're also running it with the Relicanth, who has Memory Dive, allowing you to use your previous evolution's attacks. So you're getting it to use Reverse Thruster from Croconaw that does 30 damage and lets you switch with one of your bench Pokemon. So you can be pivoting into something to shut down abilities like Klefki. When this is in the active, basic Pokemon in play have no abilities. So yeah, if you ran into a Lost Box and you're like, well, I want to be hitting things, but I also don't want to let you use Comfy, you just go, all right, Croconaw, bounce into this. Or Feraligatr, copy Croconaw, bounce into this. Feraligatr can also be copying its basic Pokemon, Totodile, who has Big Bite, doing a base damage of 10. And during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So it's similar to Mawile, just locking something in the active, just buying yourself a bit of time. If you want, you could be doing like bigger numbers though, like boosting that damage up by 120 isn't a bad call. And it just means that like they're not going anywhere. You're just, hey, I'm taking this thing out. So yeah, interesting concept. We have seen Feraligatr make top 8 a few times, so always an impressive one to see. I'll be honest, it's not really a deck I'm super familiar with or confident in playing. So when I see people piloting it to this level, like honestly, big props, respect that. For supporter Pokemon though, they did have Bibarel for a draw engine in here, combining it with Skwovet. So Bibarel lets you draw until you have 5 cards in hand. Skwovet lets you shuffle your hand onto the bottom of your deck and then draw 1 card. So you could use a supporter like Iono, get into a 6-card hand. Once you're done with it and you're like, okay, now it's a brick, Skwovet, go down to a 1-card hand, Bibarel, refill your hand, or vice versa. So yeah, really awesome combo and loved seeing people play that. Tatsugiri again for the just ability to help search out supporters. And an interesting one in here being Diancie. As long as this is in the active spot, whenever an opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that done to your benched basic Pokemon. I'd love to hear the logic in running this at a 2 count. I'm guessing it's so that they can set up their Totodiles and not need to stress about them being like bossed and knocked out. So yeah, interesting call out. It is a card that saw a lot of play when it first came out, and I haven't really seen it in a bit. So seeing it pop up in this format, honestly keen for it. Other cards in here though, we've talked about most of them, the exception being Emergency Jelly. At the end of each turn, if this Pokemon has 30 HP or less remaining, you get to heal 120 off of it. So with the amount of Frosslass we are seeing, having this to be able to chuck it on a Feraligatr so that if it's getting chipped down, you can just go, well, I was gonna get knocked out, but now I'm safe. Respect that. Like honestly, that's a good call out to have. All right, in 4th place though, we are seeing a Tyranitar deck. Another very interesting one. So its attack route does a base damage of 30, then does 30 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So if they have a full bench of 5, you can get up to, what's that, 150 plus 30, 180 for 1 Dark Energy. Yeah, not bad. You'd be one-shotting another Tyranitar in the mirror and most things in the format for just 1 energy. You're going to want to bench out most times in this format, so respect that. And if your opponent's wanting to play around that, they can, but then they're going to be taking a hit in consistency potentially. So yeah, scary. Not too sure if the pre-evolutions in this are relevant in any way. I think they're just in here because they evolve into this, right? You're going to be using rare candy and ideally getting straight to the Tyranitar. Gengar also showing up in the list, having the Night Gate ability. Once during your turn, you can switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon, so just allowing you to kind of pivot around. Not a bad call out. I'm not 100% sure I'm getting the combination here though. Like it's not like it has a pivot attack with Tyranitar. I'll be honest, I'm not too sure on the logic with that. Who made this one? Pokenelfi. If you're watching this video or if you're in Twitch chat right now, if you can let us know in the comments, that'd be appreciated. I'd love to hear the logic in having the Gengar. Because yeah, a really cool card, but I feel like I'm missing the connection here. Having more Peko in here for the in a hungry hurry ability. If this Pokemon has no energy attached to it, it has no retreat cost, so you can just bounce it into the active and bounce it back. Like, is the Tyranitar's second attack something? 230, discard the top 4 cards of your deck. No, okay. It just seems like a lot of bouncing around here. But yeah, just makes for a great pivot potential Pokemon. Also seeing the Monkey Dory in here for the Adrena Brain ability, and then Dunsparce, giving you just like a great pivot option. So when it's Dunsparce, free retreat, makes it a great guy to just chuck in the active while you're setting up another attacker, or when it evolves into Dunsparce, you can put it into the active and then bounce it back into the deck, drawing 3, or just have it sat on the bench, bounce back into the deck, drawing 3. Does have an ability, so things like Frosslass are going to be chipping away at it, but since you can just choose when to put it back into your deck, you should be fine. And the rest of the cards in here are just kind of standard staples we're seeing in the format. Having Dark Patch in here though, not a bad shout, helping just like charge up your Tyranitar on the bench, I guess is the logic to get into that second attack. So that's probably why they have the Gengar and the Morpeko, is you want this sat on the bench and then bounce it up like you're charging it with the Dark Patch. Okay, cool. In 3rd place, we are seeing TMT, who piloted a Frosslass Arcanine deck. So Arcanine has the attack Proud Fangs. It does a base damage of 30, and if any of your bench Pokemon are damaged, it's going to do 90 more without even needing an energy to declare the attack. You have Frosslass with Monkey Dory, so Frosslass is going to be damaging the Monkey Dory. You're putting some of those damage counters onto your opponent, but you want to keep at least 1 on your bench so that Arcanine can do that extra damage. You have a Veltal in here for the spread damage again, pairing amazingly with Frosslass, Cleffa for the free retreat and just to help you draw, and then yeah, for the most part, we're seeing some pretty standard stuff in here. Roseanne's backup is an interesting call out though. So it lets you get a Pokemon, a Stadium, an Energy, and a Tool card from your discard pile and putting them back into your deck. For tools, it looks like they do just have one, an Evolution TM. I guess it's a way to get another Artisan out of your deck, like effectively putting it up to a 3 count in the list. Recur some Pokemon and potentially get a Dark Energy back. So interesting one to see in here. You normally see it paired with like tool cards that are doing extra damage or boosting your health so that you're able to get extra uses out of them. Evolution TM is kind of one of those cards you want to see first turn of the game, and if you don't, you're likely not using it. So I'm guessing it's just to kind of help out, yeah, with extra Artisans to get the most out of your Monkey Dories. Like, put a Monkey Dory back into the deck, put an Artisan back into the deck, get into the Artisan, get the Monkey Dory back out, keep putting pressure. Yeah, interesting call. Xyrosix Machinations. There's no way I said that word right. Your opponent discards cards from their hand until they only have 3 left in their hand. With the limitation of only having 2 copies of a card with the same name in your deck, milling and discarding cards is, yeah, pretty aggressive. So yeah, I can understand having 1 copy of this in here. I feel like this could easily be interchanged with something like Eerie, but I can respect it coming up. Is a little bit interesting though that they have that and don't really have a draw supporting Pokemon to help them out. Like normally when you're going with these utility supporters like Xyrosix, Roseanne's, you want something like a Bidroll just to kind of help you refill your hand a little bit so that you're using a supporter for turn, but you're still getting some sort of draw effect. I guess they do have that with Cleffa in a sense though, so yeah, fair enough. All right, and in second place, we're going to see a very similar list. Another Arcanine Frosslass. This one though, including Hisuain Braviary. So this was what I was talking about that Rapska could really help out into. Its Eerie Cry is going to put 3 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that's already damaged. So Frosslass is damaging them, and then Braviary is going, all right, and hit them some more. Or Monkey Dory is damaging them, and then it's like, yep, take them down. You have the Arcanine again in the deck just to be that big kind of like beat stick, so that if your opponent's trying to avoid benching too many things with abilities, and then it's just like, well, you have that thing in the active, I'm going to deal with that. That's the threat. I don't need to take out your whole board. I just need to avoid you getting to a point where you're setting up an attacker to deal with my things. You have that option, or can just go mainly the spread route. Yveltal's in here as well for another spread option, putting damage counters, not actual damage. It's not going to get blocked by Manaphy. So if opponents aren't running something like Jirachi, Yveltal's a great way to kind of just quickly get a basic Pokemon that can start attacking if you don't have a Braviary online. We do see the Iron Bundle popping up in here as well. It has an ability, so you could put it on your bench. It can take some damage counters from Frosslass to trigger Arcanine's secondary effect for the extra damage on Proudfangs, and then at any point you can just decide to use Hyper Blower and get it off your bench, so it's not going to get knocked out by your Froslasses. Monkey Dory, that is a bit of a liability, right? Like if you have Frosslass out, if your opponent has some Froslasses out, eventually it's going to get to a point where he can't keep up with the amount of damage counters he's gaining for putting out, right? Like you can put 3 out onto your opponent, but if you have 2 Frosslass in play, your opponent has 2 Frosslass in play, that's going to be 4 between turns, 4 on the way back. You've only moved 3. Like you're slowly gaining 5 damage counters each turn. It's a little risky. So yeah, having something that is just like, well, I can get this and bounce him. Like it's helpful. All right, the rest of the deck though, I feel like it's cards we've for the most part talked about. Seeing a lot of the coin flipping and like counter cards though. So like counter catcher, kind of leaning into the fact that Braviary, you're going to be likely going behind on prizes while you're trying to just take out your opponent's entire board. Yeah, counter catcher is going to be online for the most part. It means you can be gusting something up with a high retreat cost and then hoping your opponent doesn't have a way to switch out. Only having 2 copies of cards with the same name, there's not a lot of switch cards in deck, so yeah, it's definitely a good call out. They also ran Pokemon Catcher for the coin flip ability, right? You flip a coin and it's basically a boss's orders. You don't have to be behind on prizes, but it is like that 50-50 situation, as well as Crushing Hammer, so flipping a coin, potentially discarding an energy from your Pokemon. If you're seeing Monkey Dories on the other side of the field, you can be getting rid of their dark energy, or if you're seeing your opponent slowly charging up attackers, like with manual attachments, we can try and slow them down a little bit. Also have Handheld Fan in here, so if they do hit you with something that deals damage and has energy attached, which most things do, you get to move 1 energy attached to that thing that just hit you to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So you're ideally putting it on something that's never going to be attacking, or that might be attacking, but not with that type of energy. Like if they have a lightning energy attached to it and you've moved it to something that needs water energy to attack. Yeah, it's Good card. Also seeing Calamitous Snowy Mountain in here. So this is a great way to put a bit of pressure onto your opponent when they're attaching energy for turn. When they put it on a non-water basic Pokemon, they take 2 damage counters. It's also a way that we can be putting Munkidori onto our bench, attaching a dark energy to it, and having damage on it already to move on to the opponent or to trigger Arcanine's attack. Because something with this is Frosslass, it's not putting damage counters out until between turns. So if you evolve up into Arcanine and you evolve up into Frosslass, and you want Frosslass to damage your bench so Arcanine can do extra damage, you have to wait for that turn to end, and then it'll put the damage out. This is giving you a way that it's like, okay, put that energy on there, Munkidori's hurt, cool, Arcanine can do more. Or I can move this damage onto the opponent to set up damage counters for Braviary to start doing spread. Like, it's just a way to kind of accelerate a little bit. All right, and in first place, we are seeing a very similar deck. So this is actually my list. I ended up winning it this week, and the person that got second place was a new member to the community and was kind of asking about deck lists, and I suggested this. And yeah, both of us made it to the finals. So yeah, Claire, if you're watching this, congrats. It's a very interesting mirror match in the finals. Actually had to play 4 mirror matches in the tournament tonight because I played the second place list the first round of the tournament. We paired each other, and then we paired each other in the finals, and then in the top 8 I paired 2 other people running Frosslass Arcanine type decks. So yeah, it was an interesting gauntlet and a very interesting mirror, because yeah, when there's multiple Froslasses in play, you have to get very creative. It's like, well, I'm putting a Munkidori down, I'm not expecting that I'm going to get to use it twice because there's 4 Frosslass in play. So he's taking 4 between turns, comes back to take another 4. If the opponent has a Munkidori down, they can put 3 damage counters onto mine and it'll go down. Or if they hit me with Braviary, it'll go down. So yeah, you had to get very creative with how you did things. Something different I did have in my list though was a 1/1 Bibarel line, just to give a bit of draw power. So definitely helped out, but with the amount of Froslasses running around, it was also a bit of a liability, because there was times where it's like, well, if I put Bidoof down, it's not going to survive to the next turn, so I'm just not going to do that. Like, it has an ability, Frosslass is going to ping it, their Munkidori is going to put damage counters on it. Like, I'm just giving them a free prize. Like, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, there's other matches though that they don't have Frosslass, and it's a great card to have. Other than that though, yeah, I feel like it's very similar to the second place list. I don't think there's too many things we differed on. It's mostly just they had that Bibarel line, whereas I think they had the Pokemon catchers instead. So what are your thoughts on this list? Are you keen to give it a go? And if you were to play in the budget build format, what kind of Pokemon would you be bringing? Because it's a creative format, right? Like, basically anything can be played. If you like single prize Pokemon, you want to play them, but they can't quite keep up with standard, this might be the format that you're looking for. And yeah, apologies, I'm kind of rambling. I'm recording this after just finishing stream and having played in the tournament. It's getting pretty late. So yeah, kind of just lost my train of thought, I'll be honest. If you enjoyed the video though, hitting that like button is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already so that you know when more videos like this are coming out. If you do want to participate in the tournament though, there'll be a link in the description taking you through to the Limitless page. There's a tournament every Friday night for Australia as well as North America, so there should be one that fits your time zone. Till next time though, stay golden.